I pulled my retirement fund out, put it into crypto, and I watched 25K turn to over $500,000 within 9 months.
The largest wealth transfer in history is happening right now.
Yes. Women feeling financially empowered, feeling excited about crypto, aligning their money to the future, and building exponential wealth. Is crypto a scam?
Welcome back to BackTracks, the #1 podcast to go back into the lives of successful people and uncover the steps and stories that they have taken to become who they are today. Today, I'm joined with the one and only Whitney Woodcock. Thank you so much for being on the show. Whitney is the founder of Queen of Millions. It's an online crypto community for women. She's an investor, an entrepreneur, and a speaker. Whitney's just an overall amazing human being, and I cannot wait to share some amazing stories with all of you today. Whitney, what did you have for breakfast today?
Ooh, I had eggs.
There we go. How many eggs?
2.
Look at that go. Got to get that protein, right?
Yep.
Are you on a diet of any kind or?
No, besides just eat more.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start off because Queen of Millions, crypto community, investor, entrepreneur. What do you think is an underrated token or coin that you're looking at right now that isn't on most people's radar?
Ooh, and I carved with coins. This is really, so with investing, this is where I'm like, I don't just like shill out random coins, but in the sense where it's like, if you're an investor, it's create a proper plan and follow your curiosities and rabbit holes in the crypto space. So I could just throw a coin out there, but it doesn't really mean necessarily as much to people. Instead, if you're like interested in the AI space or in the meme coins, I don't play in the meme coins. I like to invest in technology in the crypto space. Or I really love to invest in different layer ones or different networks that have a really great community and are innovative in different ways. So if I were to have one pick, Pulse Chain Network, it's a layer 1. That is my hands down favorite. And then other than that, I have some AI coins that I love as well.
I love that so much. Yeah, so it's really about the technology and the narrative behind it, not just, oh my God, Talks2a just released a coin, I better go invest.
And it's about the community.
Yeah.
Because ultimately crypto is a movement and it's training and seeing how humans adopt change and what humans have trust in. If humans, like with Talks2a, they had trust from her and then trust was broken, which is why then, of course, everything was lost in many ways.
Of course.
But crypto is very much, it's all about trust.
I love that. I want to explore your background in engineering and how that plays a role into your understanding the technology in crypto and your investment thesis and strategy, and also your community and how you've built this community. Before all that, I just have a question while we're talking about rug pulls and meme coins. And there's a very popular narrative that meme coin or cryptocurrency in general is only meme coins. There's this understanding that, oh, like crypto's a scam and it's just a bunch of people rug pulling. How would you address that belief that cryptocurrency overall is just a fad or a scam? And how do you personally avoid those rug pulls or meme coins?
So first off, is crypto a scam? To take a look at this, I like to go back to the history of money, like what actually is money. What is the US dollar actually backed by? I'm sure you know the answer.
Nothing.
Yes. Besides that, like if there's something, it's trust in the US government.
Huge.
And the question, and that's for any fiat currency, so the euro, whatever, like everything's backed by the trust in the governments. And so I like to zoom out and say, hey, humans, how do you feel about the trust in the government? Has it gone up or down?
Do we really?
So wait.
It's really backed by the U.S. military, not the public trust.
Yes, proof of force.
Yes.
So when people can start to see that and really open it up to be like, so 1971 was when we went off the gold standard. So right now we're not backed by gold or silver or anything of value besides the government, which is why we can just print on dollars and turn on the dollar machine. Which then inflation happens, you lose cost and your spending power, and it's that whole trickle effect. So if you think that crypto is a scam, yes, there are plenty of coins that are a scam, but fundamentally we are in a world where this is where I very much see it as a spiritual movement as well, where we are shifting from like the old way of doing things in the new world, where things have been very centralized and power has been very corrupt. The power has been in the hands of many few. And I believe we are shifting into a world of more decentralization where the power can be shifted into the hands of the people.
Huge.
How this layers into crypto is because blockchain technology enables it to remove from the middleman being the government and just into the hands of the people.
Yeah, it's like it's shifting from our economics. And so to your point of like the fiat currency, the US dollar is minted by the private reserve, by the Federal Reserve, which is a private entity. And the backing behind the US dollar is a proof of force. To your point, it's the US military, it's the US government, the infrastructure of the government. It is not, and the crypto narrative with blockchain and the logging of transactions, it's more of it's like a power through accountability of like, hey, we can see where the money's going. We can see who's in control of this. We can see the Hawk Tua coin. We can see that people rug pulled. We can see which accounts have the largest ownership of these coins. So there's like a power through accountability of a community, a decentralized community, versus a power of, hey, either you use the US dollar or we'll come knocking, which is like a totally different shift.
And to tie that point back, I like to see, so if everything goes back to trust in the world, everything, I think the greatest currency in the world is trust. And we can see this even like with our personal relationships, our friends who we trust with like as confidants with the great information, but then also in our currencies and where we preserve our safety, our wealth, our money. And so in the US dollar, the trust is in the US government. The trust is in humans to make decisions for the many. In crypto, we're shifting into the world of automation. We're shifting into the world of full code. And so the trust is in the code.
It's in the technology itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, like the blockchain, it's all automated. It's all run by smart contracts. And so for me as an engineer, coming back to that background, it's been really helpful just for me to be like, what do I need to trust? I'm like, oh, I need to generally understand how the code works enough for me to understand that everything's automated. And when I log back in, my coins are going to be there. And I know the safety mechanisms to protect my wealth as well.
Yeah. Hey, as long as I know my wallet ID or whatever the technology is, and I'm not as
the seed words, yes.
The seed words, yes. As long as I know my passwords, essentially, I will have access to my money. No bank can decide to go bankrupt and take my money with it. No government can decide to print more of it and devalue my currency. Yes. It's, hey, I see the technology, whether there's a set amount of coins or they're minting X amount of new coins, like what's happening and there's transparency there, so you can trust the technology.
Yes.
That's really, really exciting. I would love to hear a little bit about what you're working on right now, Whitney, and then we'll zoom back and we'll go back into engineering and all the fun steps that brought you here.
Sweet. So I'm right now I'm the founder and also lead mentor for this community called Queen of Millions, which is really around women feeling financially empowered, feeling excited about crypto, aligning their money to the future, and building exponential wealth.
It's huge.
So huge crypto and wealth conversations. We're super international right now. So we have 145 ladies at the time of this recording and 15 different countries represented. And honestly, it's been so beautiful to watch women get hit by this like little bug of like feeling nervous about money and feeling like financially disempowered, and then being like, wait, this is the first time I'm feeling really excited about this stuff. Like money actually makes sense. And it's no longer this like boring, stale, like 10%, 20% growth per year. Instead, it's like truly aligning to the changing times and understanding, kind of like if you were to invest in the internet back in the early 2000s, like we're in that revolution right now where there's a huge transference of wealth.
Yeah.
So it just adds this excitement and play and levity around money, which has so much emotional and sticky charge around it.
That's so exciting. Yeah, the largest wealth transfer in history is happening right now.
Yes,
and that's
so many ways.
Yeah, and it's at the exact same time as a spiritual awakening, or like we use this word revival.
Yes.
So we're seeing a spiritual revival. We're seeing technology like artificial intelligence and a bunch of automation and hardware, giant leaps in hardware, like talking about SpaceX and cars and all of this technology. We're seeing all of these different things, and then social media, and like we're actually getting public accountability for influencers and politicians now, which is so cool. So it's like we're seeing not only all of this money is about to change hands, but right at the time it's changing hands, people are better equipped with technology and tools. We actually have some kind of spiritual understanding of like how to operate with other humans, and we're actually increasing the public accountability. So it's like pretty divine timing when you look at it and you actually zoom out. So that's very exciting. How do you, what actually happens in Queen of Millions? Like, is this you guys all meet up at a coffee shop once a week, or walk me through Queen of Millions and how it works?
Yeah. I wish coffee shops. We've had a few in-person meetups here in Austin though. But so I have like a crypto 101 program, because a huge part of this is education, empowerment, decisions, actions, and then like emotional support as well. So it's like first off learning how to speak the language of crypto, and also building a portfolio and a strategy that is super in alignment with your energy. So I find like this is why I really like anchor in for women is like the way that women want to play in the crypto space is way different than men. For women, we want to layer more into like cycles and having time work for us and align to more exponential growth of like things that are innovation that is massively undervalued.
Okay.
And so I teach a lot of frameworks of like, this is how you train your brain to spot patterns. So we get to work smarter with our energy. So it's first off that education side of things. And then every single week we meet on Zoom where I'm like, okay, this is what's going on in the market. This is what I'm seeing. What questions do you ladies have? It's very interactive because also there's a lot of emotions that typically come up with timing is now, what's going on in the market, up and down, like volatility just really hits people's emotions in different ways. So we have that. And then I bring a bundle of guest speakers on as well. So it's like a full on education around crypto, wealth, and financial literacy.
That's amazing. What kind of experiences do people have within Queen of Millions? Are you guys seeing people set up for generational wealth? Is this like people are just actually starting savings and investing for the first time? Like who's it really built for and what do they really get out of it?
It's a little bit of a variety. So first off, I like to say in the crypto world, like, yes, the plan is multi-generational wealth. But typically when you're in the crypto world, the first market cycle is not the thing that will set you free. Your first market cycle, so like the first 4 year, every 4 years is a new cycle. The first cycle is really understanding and like learning as much as you can about the crypto space.
It's paying your dues.
Yes. Fortunately, I paid my dues and also did well in my first market cycle. So like my story on that end is like I pulled my retirement fund out, put it into crypto. A lot of education there, had a mentor, and I watched 25K turn to over $500,000 within 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not a bad 9 months.
Yeah. And then I bought myself some years to play and like rebuild myself and build a life that's more in energetic alignment with me. Hence where Queen of Millions came. And I still also made a lot of mistakes along the way. And that's why I really created this community, because I was like, crypto really is this, like, it's a huge spiritual growth, but also just a huge human growth. And it's been the greatest tool for me as a human.
I love that so much. Wow. So your first market cycle, you turned 25K and just over half.
550. Well, 550 value. And then I didn't leave with that in cash value, but yeah.
Yeah. So you invest, you do really well in your first cycle. You learn a ton about it. What inspired you to go from making all this money in cryptocurrency to building a community around cryptocurrency?
Exactly what I just said before, of the sense of like, okay, so a few things. During that crypto market cycle, I had a mentor. He was great. And also at the same time, when the crypto market gets into like a real frenzy mode, there are certain things that are missed. And I think on a human level, there's emotional things that are missed. Because like for me, going 25K to $500,000 was not even in my plan at all. I was like, wow, I'm aligned to things that have exponential growth and exponential potential. Did not think I was going to get that high. And when that happens, there are all these little voices that come into the head of like, I'm right. Or like, yeah, we're going to keep going to 1 million. And like, just the human nature voices.
Yes, you get like attached to it.
Yes. And your job as an investor is to make decisions. So if these little voices, when the little voices in my head were like really ripping and roaring when the market was high, I was like, I'm right, all the ego games. And I didn't make the highest quality decisions. And I felt a little bit alone in the process because I didn't have the emotional support. So the reason that I really created Queen of Millions was not only to have the logical and the data support and to train your brain to like spot patterns and be more financially literate and confident with your power around money, but also to actually be able to exit, and so that crypto doesn't turn into a traumatic experience where you're like, I went up by 6 figures and then I went back down.
Yeah. It's like the logic of like being able to know what decisions to make, but then the emotional intelligence to actually like feel good about it and not, oh my God, I was going to miss out on even more money, or what if I lose it all? You need both.
Yes. You need the groundedness, you need the balance, and you also need other people chirping your ear to be like, am I being egoic right now, or what is actually most aligned to my future self?
That's huge. I see the same thing in both entrepreneurship and content creation, where it's like you have such high variability. Like you go up and down. It's always volatile. And what happens is it's very emotional, right? It's highs and lows, up and down. And people either you either learn to be emotionally intelligent and respond and heal your emotions, or you just decide to murder that part of you. And you're like, I just don't need any emotions. Let me just take Adderall every day and be an operator. And it's like, it's the same thing in business that it's always been, right? We see a bunch of heartless, emotionally dead people operating because it's like they weren't able to process the emotions. And It's like, okay, finally we're actually equipping ourselves with the tools and the technology to, okay, let me just regulate my emotions. Like I can actually feel things, but I need to make the business decisions and feel good about them. And same thing in the investing world. That's very fun. How long have you been doing Queen of Millions?
I was teaching for the last year and a half in Crypto 101, and then April of 2024 is when Queen of Millions was born.
That's amazing. Congratulations. So you currently have 144, 145 members in Queen of Million. That's amazing. At the time of this recording, I'm sure it's 10x that by the time you're listening.
So. But we'll
who knows? Exponential technology, good momentum, spiritually aligned. We'll see.
Yeah.
Who knows? What has, like, how did you grow this community?
First off, this was something that I was always feeling for myself of like, I wanted to do it. And at the same time, there's always the question of like, who am I to lead this stuff? So there was a huge imposter syndrome, especially being a woman stepping into the finance space and in the crypto space. Like some of the guys can be very intense and not as welcoming. Fortunately, this is also where like I also genuinely, I love the pulse string community so much. Is like they're very supportive of lifting women up.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And there's so many themes around that too, even where like we so many guys have spoken about like this is the era of yin, of the yin rising. So like the women stepping into power, and it's like how are men also celebrating women to step more into their power as well. So I personally knew for myself, like this was massive discomfort for me at certain points of being like, we're leading this thing, like who's going to be with me? Like, is this stupid? And at the same time, I just put it out there and like women were like, this is exactly what I was waiting for.
Oh, that's so amazing.
So we started off the first 6 months. We had probably about like 20 ladies all the way through, it's like such a great size community. And then beautiful thing happens where like the election hits and like Trump wins and then the crypto markets boom. And then I had a few other like business partnerships that came in too. One in particular that was like so aligned. And fortunately, my business partner, JV, who's come in right now, she's excellent at marketing and excellent at making noise and just getting it out to the right people and the right ladies. And so it's been really such a gift for me to like build out this community and then also to receive the support of like both of us being in our different zones of genius.
Right. Yeah. And then you can actually, I'm so curious what the team structure looks like, because this is, in my experience, building the agency, having the right people with the right personality and the right skill sets to complement you it's
huge.
It's bigger than any other decision you make.
Okay, get this. So spiritually speaking, September 2022, I went on a spiritual quest and initiation into Egypt.
Okay.
And on this trip, there was like 11 of us, super luxury type of experience. We're like cruising down the Nile. And one of the gal who I'm like bunking with on this cruise, she's the one who's my business JB right now.
No way.
Yes. And so we like connected, literally we're like, we met on the Nile, cruising down the river.
That's crazy. Yeah, we just met in Egypt.
Like truly divine alignment meant to be. Like I read
cool.
her Akashic Records. Like we just dropped in on a very deep level as well. So I've had this friendship with her for the past few years. And we also had like some crazy similar stories in the crypto space where we both won really big. And the difference is like I got out and I made the cash from it and she went back down.
She hodled.
It was a complicated story in itself where like her partner like lost a lot of money through leverage trading and all. But either way, like we both knew the growth of exponentiality in the crypto space.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of seeds that were planted for this dynamic as well in this friendship. And
did you guys start the conversation about partnering then, or did you guys stay close? Like, how did the business partnership come out of?
Business trip? Friendship was the thing that was created.
Huge.
I wasn't even teaching crypto at that time.
Huge.
And then from there, she's international, Bali, Berlin, all the things. Whenever she came to Austin, I was like, hey, come on and come play with me.
Yeah.
And so really, it's just grounded on friendship. And then from there, because the friendship, the values, the clean communication, growth mindedness, like we're very much on the same the same page in a lot of things. And when friction points do come up, we just speak about it.
It's huge.
So the foundations are so solid that like both of us feel like we can both trust each other in a really deep way to be like, if something goes wrong, we can communicate and talk it out.
Yeah, that's so good. I want to unpack a little bit more of these business mechanics before we get into your backstory and your experience. But the business itself, so it's relatively new, this Queen of Millions. how did you know? I mean, you have these 20 women, you're building this community. How did you know when the product quality was good enough to take a massive leap in growth and really hammer it out to the marketplace? Or were you hammering it out from day one? Or
Well, I was hammering it out, but it's different when we just hit the tipping point. So
yeah,
my tipping point was December 1, we were at 35 ladies. And then by today, by January 15th, we were at, January 15th, where we're at, within 45 days, we had grown from 35 ladies to 120.
that's amazing.
So, and then today we're at 140. So that's like, we calculated before this, it's over 4x
Yeah.
growth.
Yeah. Just a little bit over 4x. Yeah.
So this is where the foundation of the core team in the community was so strong, and like value alignment too.
What was that foundation building process like? Was it like vision, values? Like, what did you do to make sure you were building on rock?
Okay, so Queen of Millions has been truly my baby. And there's even like a children's book that I really love. It's like, what do you do with an idea? And
I love that.
And this book is one that I carried around with me all in 2022 when I was traveling. So it came with me to Egypt and all, but I didn't realize like Queen of Millions was the baby that has been birthing through me all the way through. And so really like, what do I do with an idea is like kind of the underlying thing is like, I've just asked the idea. I've asked Queen of Millions, like, how do you want to express? And I've just listened. And I've been super present with it. And even like, that's where I just ask the ladies, I'm like, what do you need? And I feel, and I'm like tuning into their energy and their emotions and things. And I'm like, oh, we need to pivot that. We need to pivot that. So I've really just been leading and tending to the spaces needed. And even right now, like onboarding 100 women in a very short period of time has tested me on a leader in very big ways. Also has had me to hire, bring on community, other teachers as well. Ask for support in different ways, but then also even tweak the model as well. So I've just really been good at listening to it and then also pivoting when things happen and what needs to go on in the space.
I love that. That's something my understanding in business is having customer obsession or client obsession is so much more important than focusing on product perfection. Yeah. It's like you're never going to have the perfect product, but what does matter is how obsessed with your client's happiness are you? Because it's like then not only can you ask them and understand and meet their needs, but you start to anticipate their needs and prepare for their needs. And then it's like, oh, I know that the baby needs a nap at this time and it needs a Go-Gurt right after it gets home from school. And then you just have those things ready. And it's the same exact thing with product delivery. So that's really fun. Wow. That's super exciting. What's it been like marketing? How did you start marketing back in April? Like what brought you to your first 20 clients? And what's the tipping point?
So my marketing before has been my passion.
Yeah. And
my passion is very contagious around the whole mechanics of crypto, how it's changed my world, but also the opportunity rich time that we have here. That's been saying yes to everything. That has kind of been my marketing, has been speaking at conferences, on stages, on podcasts, in private groups. Austin obviously is a great place for like just connecting with other leaders, like especially female leaders who have different communities and different senses. And I'm like, hey, how do you need help? How do you need support? I'm here to serve. Yeah. So I was just in a yes energy. Yeah, really, when my sweet spot was being able to teach different webinars in different spaces.
Okay.
The tipping point that happened was more of we like really honed in on webinars, like in a really beautiful, masterful way. And also a different level of intimacy as well with how we even sent the invitations out for the webinars.
I love that. So the first 20 people, early days, April 2024, this is you talking to your people, hitting people on social media, sending text messages. Hey, I'm doing this thing. I'm super excited about it. I'm willing to die on this hill. Do you want to?
I'm not even sending cold reaches, to be really honest.
Just content.
Yeah, because I'm a new entrepreneur. I'm relatively like, this feels like finally the real deal. And I definitely didn't have the confidence on that sense. I was like, I'm just going to send out as much as I can. And I'll say yes to the invitations. And whoever wants to talk to me and has a curiosity, I was like, I'm not projecting this onto people. Yes. This is not for everyone. Yeah. But those people who it is for will know. Yeah. And they'll lean in with curiosity.
And that was your first 20. Mm-hmm. And then this tipping point, you said you really dialed in the webinar. Mm-hmm. What is that? This is, you guys make posts on social media. Hey, we're doing this training. Then people come to the training and they go, oh my God, I need to join this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. It was a lot of, because a huge thing with this is just really education to be able to feel empowered. And even if I want to rewind back in time, like before I had Queen of Millions and at the same time of Queen of Millions, my bread and butter was my Crypto 101 program. And it was once I realized, I was like, well, the Crypto 101 program, 5-week journey, thing like that. But like what they really need is they need the continual education.
Yeah.
So everything has just been an evolution where like Crypto 101 program came and was birthed because like Queen of Millions came from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone in my world has been on board because
You're good.
the education really matched. They got the education. They're like, I need to know more. So yeah, just kind of product evolution.
Very important. Wow. Okay. So I want to ask one more question about Queen of Millions, and then we're gonna zoom way, way, way back to where you got started. How amazing does it feel in your body to be where you are? Like, is this what you are these the days you used to pray for?
Yes, truly. Okay, well, we'll have to go back to some of those way back stories, but it feels so surreal. And even like at this point right now, I have never experienced this level of demand and even this level of my time being so limited, and having to work smarter with my time. So it's like, there's so many moments where I'm like, this is so beautiful. This is literally what I love. Like, I love talking about it and the light that goes on within me. I can feel it. I can see it. Others see it. Like these are the moments that really I was praying for. Did I think that it would ever be crypto? Did I ever think it would be financial literacy? Never in a million years.
Yeah.
I actually try to avoid teaching this stuff because I mean, obviously in our life, what the things that trigger us or that like trigger and activate us the most are also the things that we want to hide from, or like they're the biggest tests. That's my experience. So like money has been such a big test for me. At the same time, I was like, who am I to speak about these things? And at the same time, it's like, well, this is why, like, you have to lean in and publicly do this for myself and for others. So I absolutely adore it. I get so much life, love, and energy from it. Words of affirmation are like so one of my love languages. And the ladies in my group are just like pure gratitude, pure excitement, so grateful for the space. And just to like witness their whole journey. Like, it's so life-giving for me.
So important. Do you, are you working harder right now than you ever have before?
What does hard mean? Working hard.
In terms of like, that's a great delineation. I appreciate you asking that. Something I've noticed is when I really hit momentum, like when I strike gold, it is much harder than digging through rock because it's more delicate work. It's more focused work. I guess, what does hard work look like? The intensity and focus you're dedicating to doing the thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's an eat, sleep, breathe type of thing. And even like, there's a sacrifice, there's a devotion, but it doesn't feel like a sacrifice and a devotion. It just feels like this is the only thing. This is the only way right now.
Yes.
And for me, that's been so liberating. It also helps reduce decision-making for me. And at the same time, like, decision-making has been amplified in so many ways as well. I've just had to make so many more decisions, but having that inner peace and inner knowing of like, this is the way, this feels really good. I am working my butt off with this, where even like I'll be up until midnight or 1 a.m. doing some things like,
and then back up in 6. Let's go.
Not that crazy. I'm like, I need my sleep.
That's good.
But at the same time, I'm stacked with more meetings, more support, more ways, and pulling on a lot of different hats, especially like being able to lead the community is one thing, but then also to be able to manage my own crypto investments, do the research, be able to deliver the information. Like, the crypto world it just moves so fast too.
Right.
So I'm being tested in a different way, which honestly feels so fun.
That's good.
Yeah. So it feels good to work hard. And I've also had a lot of people remind me, and my own self remind myself too, of like it's such a gift to be able to push myself to these edges of capacity.
You're finding the boundaries.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, let me stretch into like, wow, I just made 20 different decisions today.
Yes.
Or that one decision I made in that meeting today is going to ripple over the next 3 months. It's exciting. It's very exciting, but it can be nervous. I think the number one thing that I see the number one thing that entrepreneurs are like, oh, you have to like love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life and you have to work really hard. It's like, you mentioned, you're like, it's an eat, sleep, breathe type of thing. And what that looks like to me is like, you have to be willing to put in the hard work. But the reality is anybody can just simply work hard. It's like, am I willing to put in the hard work? Am I willing to actually make the decisions I need to make and focus on? Like, there's a million decisions I could make that have no relevance. And so can I make the decisions that actually matter? And then is it actually important to you? And I think that you have all three right now, which is exciting.
Yes. And that's even like, is it even important to you? The word alignment for me has been huge. And that has been my prayer for years. Like I'm 31. And back when I got into the crypto space going on 5 years now. And that the prayer that I had when I first left the corporate world and I got into Bali and like was there was really around how do I live a life that feels very purposeful?
Mm,
Because a lot of things were feeling purposeless. And so this life has this mission, this thing. The reason I'm able to work so hard and feel so devoted to it is because it's in full alignment with my values, soul expression, zones of genius. Oh, that's huge.
huge.
It feels fun. It feels like a fun playground.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. How would you define the word alignment?
Ooh, that feels even like a 5D word when we say it that way. There's I'm seeing like a line. There's like an integrity and alignment. I mean, it's a line, but it's it ties in values so deeply. So it's how does my inner values get expressed in external way as well.
Mm,
So for me, it's being aligned to the core, which is value expression. So for me, even like over the past few years, it's been getting very clear on what are my values, like what is the
yes.
essence of me, and then also how do I express that to the max capacity in real life in so many different ways.
That's so it. A big part of my personal development journey. I was a drug addict as a kid, and didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And so a huge part of my journey has been like, number one, it's like, who do I believe myself to be? Like, what's my identity and what are my values? And it's so funny. Like, it's the most important thing. But when I first started discussing like what is my identity and what are my values, like there were these things that were so far out of truth of who I like how I was acting. It's like I'm getting high every day. I'm addicted to pornography. Like I have no healthy social environment. I'm not saving my, like I have no clue what I'm doing with my life. And here I'm talking about like, oh, like integrity and honesty are very important to me when I'm lying in every single area of my life. And so to your point of alignment, it's like first you have to know what the line is, which are these beliefs and identities that don't really matter how you show up. It's like you could be super rich or super poor, or you could be fit or unhealthy. It doesn't really matter. I think the beliefs are like they were born into us, and then it's just learning tools and ways and going through healing or whatever it is to get closer and closer and closer and closer to actually walking on it.
What were some tools that you found to be able to to discover your values?
Yeah, so to discover the values versus getting into alignment with them, I think are two very different and distinct things. Um, Tools to discover them is a lot of like reflection and both isolated reflection and communal reflection. So I've done a couple masterminds and events and community workshops where people ask you questions, right? It's very pointed. There's exercises. It's, hey, we're going to upset you. And then we're going to put you in a meditation with a bunch of questions. And then you're going to talk about what you learned. So you can discover values in that environment, or it's journaling every day, or just meditating. And so a lot of like introspection, reflection to discover those values versus actually implementing them, I think really comes down to like discipline, accountability, and like clear goals of like, and goals that are input focused, not output focused. Of like, it doesn't matter what this leads to, it matters whether or not I do the thing and how good I do the thing. So one of my, actually the only core goal of 2025 is to spend 10 minutes or more every single day meditating. And so I can focus on this goal of yes or no binary. Did I do the 10 minutes of meditation every day? But then how well did I do it? Did I open my eyes? Did I do my meditation with a slouched back or a straight back? So I can focus on attention to detail. I can focus on quality. I can obsess over it and I can be in alignment with it. But yeah, I think the discovery of values, and one of my values is faith and having a strong connection to like a belief bigger than myself, or an understanding that it's not about me, which I think is the root of humility, is like knowing that there's something way bigger than you, even if it's just, hey, 1,000 years from now, nobody knows who you are. So even that to a degree is, I believe, faith. So the value is faith, and then the actual implementation of that or the integrity of that is, can I spend at least 10 minutes every day in that? Yeah. Um, I want to pose the same question to you. How have you kind of discovered your personal values? And if you don't mind sharing, what are they?
Okay, so personal value discovery. Um, I did. I find that there can be like a few exercises that you can like. I went deep down this one exercise for me that just like changed and that helped me just see it, where I visualize values as a tree, or like your human expression. So there's the tree trunk, there's the roots, there's the leaves. The roots are your values.
Okay.
And so as anything grows upon that, that should all be in alignment with the values. And so even like you can put all the activities being the leaves or the branches outside. And so they should all be able to kind of sum back and reflect that.
Yeah.
So for me, I did that exercise where I was like, I just listed a whole bundle of words of values. And I spent a couple hours and days going back and revising this to be like, what are those words that, like, if I were to be like, hey, this is Whitney, and I would give it off to my friends and my family, they would read that list and be like, yeah, that's her. And so for me, I like to say for me, I find 3 to 5 words is kind of like the sweet spot. For me, it was 5. And my 5 core values are freedom, curiosity, growth, expression, and connection.
Freedom, curiosity, growth, expression, connection.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great 5.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Curiosity has been a huge fuel of my life. Freedom is a huge fuel of like why.
Yeah.
Connection at the root of every single thing. Expression's a great driver, and also like weaves in a lot into the growth side of things, to just be like, hey, I know that I want to hide at certain times. How do I express needs, seen, all these different these things that feel very much just like who I am right now. And those things have all been woven into my community as well. So like knowing those things have then helped me express and be like, okay, is this relationship, is this interaction, is it all in alignment with my values, or am I missing one value and it like needs to be picked up in different ways?
I love that. It's so interesting. The discovery of values, I think, is extremely important. And I've done a lot of work on it, but I think that there's more to do. I don't feel complete. I noticed that I tell myself this story, like there's this frustration or this anxiety that I'm like, oh, but I need to be working. Like I don't have enough space, and I'm relatively successful by the world standards. I wonder what it's like if I was working a 9 to 5 again, if I was back in the rat race of like literally no control over my time and very little access to money. So I can't buy back any time. I have no freedom. How do you think I could find the space to actually go through all that? Like, let's say I, have kids at home, so I don't have space at home. I have a job that I can't avoid. How do I even discover my values?
I mean, curiosity is the greatest fuel for that. But at the end of the day, I'm like, if you don't have space, you're never going to find out. So it's a question of prioritizing. If you actually want to find these values out, like you have to set time aside for yourself, knowing and like kind of, for me, it's that inner knowing that I'm going to do this. I don't know where it's fully going to take me, but I have a knowing that I have to do this for myself now, for my past self, for my future self, for my family beyond. I need to have a little bit of selfishness in certain moments to get clear on these things, because it's going to be a ripple effect that is going to be astronomical going forward in my life.
Yeah.
And the more that I know myself and I know my needs and I know who I am, I can show up more full as myself, which then also helps other people relax into deeper forms of their own self as well.
That's so massive. Yeah, it's like being selfish with taking the space to say, hey, I need to prioritize this is actually selfless, because it's like now I can show up more effectively at work and at the house and for my partner and whatever else it is. To your point, it's like you cannot let the excuses win.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sorry that you work an 80-hour week. I'm sorry that you have a family at home or that you're living in poverty. You need to create, even if it's just a little moment, to breathe and actually understand, hey, what's going on and like, where am I going? Yeah, you have to do that work.
And it's a question for the future self. It's because we'll keep on creating the same patterns. But it is, if you want to pattern interrupt and create a different future, it has to be in alignment with what you're creating or who you're becoming or what that future version is. So for like, this is where like when I left the engineering career for me, and then I moved over to Bali, that was a huge thing for my own self, where like even my family was, what are you doing? You're crazy. Also like, who are you now? Like, you're not an engineer. Like, what identity do we have to describe who you are for others? And I'm like, I don't know. You're gonna have to figure that out on your own, but this is something that I need to do for myself right now.
Right.
And there was a lot of pushback that I received in the periods, and also in the time of having ownership of my money as well, and getting into the crypto world and who I'm trusting and what I'm trusting in. Like, there was a lot of different things that went around where like I could have easily been like, oh, no, like this is too much. Like I'm too far out of my lane, or I need to go back into my box so that other people feel safe about this as well. But I had a few years where I was pretty selfish, And that now on the back end, I have the best relationships that I've ever had with my family.
Mm.
I feel like, especially with my mom, like it's been such a deep relationship that we have, where even like any visit that I have with her, I lived with them for a few months in 22. Like we leave, and in every car ride to the airport, she's always like, I'm so grateful for how deep our relationship is and just how we've grown. And so that acknowledgement, where it's like people are like, you can even see sometimes when like humans don't like change, and my family didn't like certain changes in the moment, but now when we zoom forward, I was like, can you trust that that's in alignment with where we actually want to grow to?
Yeah, they're actually reaping the reward and it's bearing fruit. And they're like, whoa, this is kind of nice. Like,
Yes.
I actually have a daughter that I can connect with and feel amazing about. Um, that's so awesome. So you have this life right now where you're the closest you've ever been with your family. You have a business that feels real, exciting, and meaningful to you. You have a community of women that not only love you, but their lives are changing, and you know that you've played a part of that. Um, you have a pretty awesome life right now, it sounds. Things are going okay. Uh, just so people look at that, and of course the response to anybody doing well on the internet is, oh, this was inherited or whatever. Like, people want to take away from the work that you've done to get here. I would love to actually take a look at, like, what was that like growing up? What was the household like growing up? Going into a career as an engineer, what was that like? What were the early days before all of the clout and the speaking gigs and the community and the crypto success?
Okay, growing up, so born and raised in Massachusetts, in the suburbs outside of Boston, like New England, very classic New England vibe, in the sense where I was the oldest daughter of three girls. White picket fence, golden retriever, dad engineer, mom stay-at-home wife, like very cliche in that sense. And I'm also so grateful. Like I find like over the years I had to do so much healing around the past too, or of how I remembered it and how I framed it. Um, but one of the greatest gifts from being in that environment was safety. Like my parents really wanted to have me feel safe in the world, whether that was their intention or not. That was their intention, but they wanted a good education and they wanted me to feel safe. And from that level of safety, that has had me feel safe to go out into the world and discover and take more risks.
Yeah,
And so growing up, I was kind of like, oh, these things are boring, or like I'm bored, or like this life doesn't feel like it's aligned with me.
right. Because it's not exciting and it's not dangerous. So, oh,
But building that base level of safety is so healthy. And then there's obviously layers within it, where like a huge part for me has been like being the oldest daughter. That's a
mhm.
huge identity, and the level of responsibility that I've taken on with being the oldest and the pressure that I felt around that. That was kind of a huge piece, like empathetically and just anxiety wise, to be like a very high performer, perfectionist, and have different tendencies in between. So I've always had like I think that a lot of my caring and like perfection my perfection comes from caring.
Mm, okay.
Um,
Tell me more.
well, I mean, I think all of our stuff comes from caring, but it's a matter of what you care for. So like obviously caring for like parents' love, that was a huge thing for me. But then also caring like with my sisters and just like how I would impact them as well
Yeah,
in
you
different
wanted
ways.
to be a good big sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say, like, a lot of your childhood, like, you wanted to get the best grades and be in the best on whatever sports teams,
Yeah.
because you're like, well, if I get a B or a C, like, then my sisters will see that, or like if I'm messy at home, or
I'm not entirely sure where some of the grade stuff like yeah, there's definitely a level of excellence that I held myself to that I didn't even I honestly didn't realize it, because that was just my baseline. I actually
yeah,
thought the voice in my head growing up was very much like, I feel like I'm behind. I always felt like I was behind. So like
yeah,
kind of like, yes, good girl energy, but at the same time I was like, I only know to like do the best, and I didn't know that I was doing well. I didn't know that people respected me.
right,
It wasn't like I did sports all the way through. Senior year I was like captain of all three sports. Like I didn't realize that there was a certain reputation or energy around me, because I was just trying to keep up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So even though you're captain of 3 sports teams and doing well in school and you have this amazing career trajectory as you're getting ready for college and going to college, like your life sounds amazing, but the whole time you're just like,
Yeah. So confidence was a big problem for me all the way growing up.
sure.
Definitely for sure. Yeah, confidence. And so that's been a huge part of even like my motives in the financial space, but also in the leaving and going and creating a life that is radically not what I came from. Has been like, can I prove and see how confident I really am and how much the world actually sees how confident, like other people are like, how are you so confident about X, Y, and Z? I was like, you see me as confident?
Yeah. What do you mean? Tell me more. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Did your family, did your two sisters and your parents like call you, like, did they look at you like you were insane when you quit your job as an engineer and went to Bali? Or were they understanding?
It was a mixed jar. Like I've been as transparent as I could be given like all my communication levels over time. So like I think a big thing for my parents was they see me as perfect, and they also don't want to admit that when things are off, like where things have come from. Um, and so when I was like, when I was telling them that I was leaving the engineering career, I was like, hey, I'm actually doing terrible. Like internally, like I feel so unmotivated. I feel purposeless. Like this like hurts me inside.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a thing or at least for my parents too, where like they just don't want to see me hurt.
Mm.
And so like it's like every parent wanting to be like, how can I save you? How can you do these things? And it's like at the end of the day, like I have to save myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I need to take the space. You can't fix this
yeah,
for me.
and you may not know where the journey that is ahead for me or what I have to do or who I have to become, but like I have to go out there and figure that out for myself.
Yeah.
So parents had a little more pushback. My sister, I'm really close with my sister right below me. She just wanted love from me, and so she was like, "You're leaving," and she like didn't know how to like fully express that. So it was just like at the end of the day, I was like, I just have to go and do these things. I'll figure it out. But at the end of the day, like everyone wove together with a stronger relationship and more love than ever expected.
That's amazing. I look at it, I call it the wilderness season of like, you actually had to go into the woods. It's like, all right, guys, I'm leaving, I'm leaving the farm. I'm leaving this safe place that we all know so well. And you know who I am and what I do. And maybe I'm not here to feed the animals anymore. So someone else is going to have to pick that up in family dynamics, speaking metaphorically, because you have to go find out what's in the woods for you. So it's a tough and scary thing, but the other side of it is pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was there a tipping point in your engineering career where you're like, I'm miserable, I'm not motivated, I don't want to be here? Was there a moment? Was there a straw that broke the camel's back?
It was interesting. I would like walk around the office. Well, so I jumped between, I was a construction engineer. So I had started off with like hard hat and like boots, like literally like managing crews and like cranes and like construction and concrete. And we were building, it was like a $1.5 billion project in DC building like metro rails.
Wow.
So started off with that, then moved into the office and was like winning like $750 million projects. Like it was like big things. And then, so anyways, my big thing with the engineering space was like, I had a curiosity where like every single time, every role I was in, I was like, this doesn't feel right. It was like the too hot, too cold. Yeah. And I was like, well, let's just jump around through some flavors and see what if there is a good fit. Okay. I was like, I don't know if this is for me, but let me just figure it out.
Yeah.
And for me, that season was really important because I was able to rotate between 3 different departments within my general contracting company. And I was really able to check it off for myself to be like, this was a vision for my parents that they had for me and that society had for me. And this would work out for a lot of people.
Right.
However, this dream is not in alignment for me.
Yeah. The external pressure is, hey, you just stick this out for 30 years. You're going to have a good life. Like it's what you need to be doing. But inside you're like, I don't really want to be here, even though it's amazing.
Yeah. So even like, I call this like the menu of life is like, I have to just like go in and check off these different flavors and be like, if it's not that, I get a no. And that no gives me so much freedom to then step into something unapologetically and have a yes.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I actually don't like Oreos, but I love strawberries, but you kind of need to try them to find out.
Yes. And I find the biggest headache that a lot of people have is they get stuck on the no too much and add the like emotional pressure around it too. And it's like at the end of the day, like being a human is like making decisions and that's our job. And it's like, how fast can we make a decision once the answer's in?
Yeah, it's like, okay, you know that you don't love this, so let's move on and find something else instead of like, oh my God, but everybody thinks I should be doing this, and by external metrics, this is what I should be doing. So let me spiral out of control because I should be here, but I don't want to be. It's like,
Yes.
no, okay, I know it isn't this. Onwards and upwards.
Yes.
Next thing.
So my breaking point was like there was one year where I ended up doing 13 ayahuasca ceremonies in a year while I was like working corporate.
So you're working at a GC company
yeah.
as a construction engineer. And does your company know about this?
No.
You're just like, hey, I'm going to be gone for a week. I'll see you later.
It was just weekends. I would go down to 2 hours outside of the city. These shamans would come in from Costa Rica, and it was the medicine that I so needed. And I was like just beginning teacher training and meditation, like all on the side. So like my coworkers knew that side, but
yeah, so they know you're going to yoga class,
yeah.
doing some spirituality, but your weekend warrior is you're going to do an ayahuasca with a shaman from Costa Rica.
Yes.
Where is this?
So in Charlottesville was the location. So it was just like a little outside of DC. Which was amazing. It was like such a gift. I was like, what? This exists? So that was my like breaking moments where I was like, that was my illumination to see how much I'd given my power away and how much my life was not in alignment, and how nervous I was to just be like, oh, you're so nervous to take that step and to like believe in myself. And really my big question coming into the ayahuasca ceremonies was like, am I special? Like, is there a purpose for me to actually take a risk and to go outside of what is known for me and to go venture into that unknown area?
Yeah.
And the answer every single time was yes. And I just felt like I got so many, there was a big reset that was happening during all those ceremonies to just be like, it was building like trust fuel for my own self.
That's amazing. So I've never done ayahuasca, but I have done plant medicine.
Yeah.
Psilocybin, and I've spent a lot of time reflecting and learning in my own life. And a super huge thing that I realized is like, and this is going into the Bible, or so I have a more Christian ideology. Well, I am Christian, so I have a Christian ideology, but throughout my plant medicine and my reflection and my prayer and all these things, I keep coming back to like, if we're made in the image of God and God loves us and he has plans for us and he knows every hair on our head, and he had plans for us before he even made the universe. Okay, so God really loves me, which means I'm very much special. And then there's like this, it's so funny how the ego does things, right? Like you do anything, you surrender to God, you let go, God gives you something, and then you get this, like this human, I did this, oh, look at me, I'm so awesome. And it's like, no, chill, bro. And so it's like this combination of like, you are so special and so loved and you are so incredible. And also you're not better than anybody else or worse than anybody else. Cause it's like, as a kid, feeling behind, feeling overwhelmed. It's like, oh my God, I'm worse than everybody. I better catch up. I gotta keep ahead. I have to keep up with the Joneses, whatever it is. Cause it's like, I don't want to be worse than someone. And then the other side of it in like the corporate world or in the marketing space that I've been in, it's like, I see all these leaders that they've had this success, like they were blessed, or God gave them a $100 million company or multi-billion-dollar company, and then it can very easily get polluted and turn into this like, oh, these peasants that work for me and these people that I control, and it's like, whoa, 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 like let's take a step back. So it's really beautiful to see that you were in this corporate environment, which has both of those stories really played out of I'm worse than people, so I'm subservient, or I'm better than people, so I control them. And it's like actually the identity that is biblically based, and that I think all the medicine shows us, right? Ayahuasca, or all the stories I've heard from people, is actually I'm loved and very special, and there's plans for my life. And so is everybody else. So I'm just going to live with liberation and do my thing and stay in my lane because that's all that matters.
Yeah, even like the raw material law of one, like that was like really key for me in Bali when like all the crypto hit too, of like just going back to I'm like, what are the laws of the universe? Like how was I birthed? Why was I here? Why are we all here? What's the creation process? I had like such a fascination around that whole aspect where it's like, let's just break down like what is this being about being human?
Yeah, it's very, very, very important because it's like talking about foundations. It's like, first, what are the core truths across the board? And then what are the truths to me about my values and self-identity? And then it's like, okay, now from that, I have a solid understanding of who I am and why I am that way. Now I can actually look at like, what do I want to do as a career and what do I actually want to do in the world and how do I want to be in service, which is really fun. I have a question for you. I feel very inspired to ask you, what do you feel like is next? Do you feel called in any new directions or the edges of your where you at now? Where are you pushing? Where are you leaning in?
Conversation wise?
No, in terms of your life. So you go career of, you're pursuing stability and whatnot as an engineer, then you felt pushed into spirituality, and now you're here.
So edges right now. So I feel like there's been different tipping points that have happened now, and now some of my I'm a really big giver.
Okay.
And I can also overgive. So as a leader, I'm also noticing not a selfishness, but an aspect of how do I help balance the playing field, balance it for myself so that this can be sustainable. And because I can see very easily with how much I love what I'm doing, but also how much burnout could be a thing that is very close. And so it's been the next level for me is been more of like, how do I invite expansion, ease, and more freedom into my life? And also feeling like it's like so many things from the value aligned spaces came into my world where it's like, oh, now there comes this different way that I'm able to serve and help in different ways. However, like I haven't filled up my like travel cup, which has been a huge part of me. And I've definitely I've dedicated a lot of time and sacrificed a lot of things over the past few years of just building. And also, how do I fill up like my soul cup too?
Yeah.
So that this can be sustainable. So that's a huge invitation that I have for myself, is like, I can see where certain things can go and how the invitations can keep on going. But for me to keep that soul energy and the passion to keep on serving and helping people, I have to shift a little bit more into tending to myself.
Come on. Yeah. Super key. Yeah. It's like, if you burn yourself out, then none of it actually matters.
None of it.
What are you doing to prepare for that? Because now you're anticipating, right? You're driving 60 miles an hour. You see the wall coming up. What are you doing to move it out of the way?
A few things. So one, a huge thing for me always goes back to money. So it's noticing in this time, like when mass expansion happened in the business too, it was like, oh, okay, money's a thing now.
Yeah, we just Forexed overnight. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so I was even noticing like there were little voices of greed, but not really that much. And like I was very conscious and aware of them. And then also noticing where I'm like, okay, if I want this to be sustainable, I very, very, very much want my team members to be taken care of in a way so that I can trust that the whole team is moving properly and is properly compensated as well. And that way it's equal energy exchange.
Yes.
So a big part of my leadership in making sure that I trust that this can keep on growing and scaling has been business planning, money management, making sure equal energy exchange, and also just making sure I have the right people in my court to help me do this, knowing that I can't do it alone. All right. Yeah, I can't do it alone and I need them. So that's a huge piece, has been the money side of things. And then for my own self now it's, and so now it's like delegation, which is a whole different skill that I'm learning.
Yes. Delegation, there's a saying, delegation is a superpower, because it is.
Yes. Yep. So I'm learning that. And also I'm having a lot of coaching around that from people in my world who are like, you're not supposed to be doing that. And I was like, you're right.
But that's hard too, and I think I have to.
And I've been doing this so well. Where has that gotten you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. So delegation, and then also just once I have systems, trusting them and going off and having the plan. So I even mentioned before this, I'm like going to Bali in February. I haven't been back to Bali since March 22. So I'm very excited to drop back in. I have a few more travel plans that are coming up later this year. And also a lot less travel plans and a lot more space where I'm like, we're just going to say yes. Like that is, there was a year of 2022 where I just was fully nomadic. I was living in Bali for years before, in New Zealand and all the things. And then a tipping point happened where I was like, oh, it's time for me to go back into the world. Like not to just stay on this island and stay in my own space.
Yeah.
And so I like came back and had the intention of like reintroducing myself to my family. And so I spent a lot of time in 2022, like with my family, extended family, whoever wanted to take me. I was like, I'm flying there. Like I'm here.
Yeah.
And that was just yes energy. And I'm very much calling in a lot more of that energy right now too, to like, I'm like, yes, I can build my teams, but also like, can I just say yes and do the things and go to the places and
come on
and enjoy and really enjoy the experience of what I've built.
Yeah. It's like, actually, can I go play? And
truly.
Yeah. It's so important. I think that it's like talking about the emotional intelligence side of things. It's like one of the most underrated things as an entrepreneur is giving yourself permission. It's just like, okay, I know that travel makes me excited and I'm productive and I get clarity and it fills my cup so that when I return, I'm just that much more on mission. I should probably create space to travel. I should probably create the space to play. Um, one of my favorite things in this world, for sure.
Yeah.
Got to make that space. You mentioned, I was like, where do you feel called and pushed now? And you're like, in this conversation? And I was like, oh, interesting. So I have a feeling you have somewhere you want to go with this conversation.
No, I think you're guiding it well.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I was like, I want to make sure that, yeah, I'm more than happy to be the guest on my show. So if you have any questions for me, I have no issue answering them.
Similarly, flip the question back to you. What is the expansion? What's the next stage for you?
I love cars. Cars are cool AF. So tomorrow I'm going on an exotic car rally. It's gonna be like 2.5 or 3 hours of driving. There's a professional driver that's leading it. The whole course is planned out. I have a very nice car that's very fast. I really like driving. I've always really liked driving. One of my favorite things growing up, when I was like 19 years old, I worked at a ski resort and I'd get up at 5 a.m, said I have to drive to the ski resort, and I drove this crappy 2000, it was I think a 1998 GMC Sierra truck on summer tires that were like totally bald, and I had a bunch of sandbags in the back of it because I lived in Colorado. And so I would drive an hour to the ski resort and you're just fishtailing and it's crazy and you're almost driving off the road, and I loved it. And like people, that's terrifying to most people, like driving up a road where 80% of the cars are in the ditch and you're just like, going up this hill. And I found so much joy in it. And so returning to that is
what's that feel like? What fills your cup up on that end?
I don't know. It's just like, it's play. It's like building Legos. Yeah, I think it's, for me, I love traveling. I love cars. A really big one, which is, it's fun to do, is like, I just enjoy being taken care of. And so like, I just got a facial yesterday for the first time in my whole life. I kind of enjoyed it. Or like back in Colorado, I was training for an Ironman. I used to go to a chiropractor and a stretch therapist. So I had this guy that would just stretch me. And so he'd like be pulling my arm behind my back. And I'm like, it's kind of nice. Like you feel very recharged. Same thing, float tanks. Have you ever?
I love float. Okay, so we have a lot of overlaps too. So my original background, actually one breaking point for me was endurance training. And I was training for a half Ironman. Come on. And broke my body.
Yeah, they'll do that.
Yeah, so like I couldn't, I was in the best shape of my life and couldn't race anyways.
Yeah.
But float tanks have been such home for me. Actually, I did a darkroom retreat. That's also been life-changing.
Isn't that where they like lock you in a room with like no light?
Yes.
For how long?
For me, it was 3 days.
So you sat in a room that was pitch black for 3 days?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about that. That's cool.
And the darkroom has been the single most important moment of my life, like most life-changing.
So set aside ayahuasca, set aside moving to Bali and quitting your job.
Yeah.
Spend 3 days in a room that's pitch black.
Yes.
Why was it so crazy?
In the darkness. Well, first off, I didn't think that I was afraid of the dark. I get into the darkness and I'm like, this is the darkest of all darks I've ever seen. Can't see your hand in front of your face. Can't even feel your hand in front of your face.
So 3 days in, you're staring at your hand like this and you can't see anything.
Yeah.
You're not wearing it like you can open your eyes. Like you're not wearing a blindfold.
Yeah. So
that's insane.
And it was what I did not expect was in the, like, I had this voice that came into my head before. So I did this one when I was in Bali. I had this voice that came in and was like, it's time for you to go on a retreat. And I was like, I've never heard this voice before. We're going to follow it. We're going to do this. What type of retreat? And I was like, I refuse to do Vipassana. I can't do 10 days.
I'm not sitting in silence for 10 days. No, I'm a yapper.
Yeah. And I was like, but I remember my friend said about this darkroom thing. I could do that. And so sure enough, I didn't realize there was a darkroom retreat 10 minutes away from my house, like literally the same street as my gym. And I could book on an Airbnb. And so within 24 hours, I was in the darkroom.
That's nuts.
Which was great because no preparation, no mental like anxieties around it. I was like, we're just getting in and doing this thing. I'm not even sure. I think I told my mom. I think that was it.
It's like the Michael Singer has the Surrender Experiment, that book where it's like just follow the flow of life. And it's like, that's the type of thing. Or it's like, it was almost effortless. It's like, oh, I need to do something. Oh, this thing is awesome. Oh, it's right in my backyard. Oh, I can do it tomorrow. Okay, cool. I'm gone.
Yes.
That's amazing. How do you eat food in a darkness retreat?
They gave me food 3 times a day through like a slot in the window. Anyways, you you relate to food in a different way. Also, it was just interesting noticing in particular the voices in my head that came in, where the real thing that I loved about the Darkroom retreat was that I got to study the science of like creation and how like my mind creates thoughts and also how my thoughts create reality type of thing.
Yeah.
And during the Darkroom, I noticed how I would have one thought and it was like the escalator down. One thought would turn to another thought, would turn to another thought. And if it was a bad thought, it was very easy for me to be like, fear. My house is burning down. My parents died. My grandparents died. Everyone's dead. Someone stole my crypto money. Like now I go back to the US and like my parents like turn me into the FBI for doing something that I didn't do. And now I'm locked up and my freedom's gone. And so it was incredible for me just to observe how like my mind was going from like, if I was on a negative loop, it would just go from worst case to worst case to worst case to worst case. And did any of that, was any of that practical?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is fascinating.
And this is just like, so you're sitting in this dark room and you just have a thought and you're just like, oh my God, what if my parents are dead?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what if my mom has, like, what if the FBI is waiting
Yeah.
as soon as, and so you're just like panicking more and more about things that have no relevance to reality.
At all. So like being in the dark room was hell.
Yeah.
And then it was once I got out that I was able to like look back and my little TMI was like, when I got out, the big first realization I had is I looked back and I was like, oh my God, I had my period this entire time and I didn't know it. Because it's dark and you like, there's certain things that I just didn't pick up on. And so that was like my first aha to be like, oh my God, I created all these situations in my mind that are not real. What is actually real? And so having that moment of like pure like anxiety, like the worst of all worsts, and then getting out and noticing like this comicalness of like, what has my mind created? Oh my God, if I created that in that moment, how many worst case situations have I got myself into or thought that I have? And like I'm creating in my mind actively and still. And then also, how much do I just get to choose a thought to be like, I don't believe in that. And I'm just going to choose a higher, like an actual, like something that could actually happen for real rather than just like, am I looking over my shoulder, like left, right, all these things. So like what is real was a big question that I started to like look in for myself.
That's badass. How is the darkness retreat more powerful than doing ayahuasca 13 times?
Ayahuasca felt like the warm up for this.
That intense.
Yeah.
Is this a character flaw that I think I could do a darkness retreat easy? I'm like, that actually kind of excites me. I'm like,
then do it.
Okay.
And in the sense of like, I want it to excite you because then also you go in with the curiosity.
Yeah.
And it's like, what am I going to discover?
For sure. But buckle up is what you're saying.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You'll learn something about yourself for sure.
Okay.
And I'd love to go back and do another one.
Yeah. That's so exciting. I ate in a pitch black room in Montreal, Canada. There's a restaurant that you go in, same thing, it's pitch black. It's like 3 doors that you have to walk through, and then they have a guide that walks you in, and all of their wait staff is blind, which is really cool. So they only employ blind people because it's pitch black. So like, why would they need to see anyway? And it's a great job outlet. And so we went in and we like had this meal, and they don't give you the menu, so you don't know what you're eating beforehand. So it's like you go in, they're like, do you have any allergies? Yes or no? Do you want any drinks? You order outside before anything, and then you walk in, and it's like, I think I had a 3 or 4 course meal in pitch black. And so like this blind dude is like, here's your fork if you want it. And like, I noticed I'm like sitting in this room eating dinner with one of my friends. We're having a conversation. I'm just eating with my hands. I'm like, this is so awesome. So I'm excited to try that.
So I cut you off on your future things. So receiving, was there anything else on your end? Like, 'cause you were receiving all the touch or the support with stretching and all. Was there anything else that you're calling in?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest ones right now is just like, receiving, allowing myself to get filled back up. And then actually, here's a really exciting one. I'm realizing that my whole life, like I feel very natural with strangers. I feel very natural in life. Like I've always taken a very chill approach, a very relaxed approach. I feel very excited in this moment to be more professional. So it's like, for me, I've never played in the corporate world or any of that. And so right now for me, it's like how professional can I really be? Like as I'm sitting in a hoodie on my own podcast. So we're working on it.
Professionalism can kind of be an energy as well.
Yeah, it's baby steps.
Yeah.
It's baby steps. Yeah. Yeah, so that's what's been exciting me recently. If you do another darkness retreat, are you gonna do 10 days or 3 days or
3 to 5? I don't think I need to go above 5.
yeah, okay. I like how potent that is. You don't have to spend, 30 days backpacking or something. It's just 3 days.
That was why, yeah.
Yeah. It's very convenient. The modern society we live in would really love that. It's like there's no hangover. It's very convenient. Just go to 3 days.
Well, the crazy thing with the Darkroom is, at least mine, the door wasn't locked. So you can
you can rock out anytime.
Anytime. And so it's that in itself is, and it's even seeing like in life, like we can step out, we can walk out at any point, but it's every single moment choosing yes.
Yeah.
And also being like, if I stepped out, what else is there? And like I sat with that a few times where I was like, if I step out, what am I going to think about for myself for the next time going forward? Like the fact that you only got 2.5 days in, that you got 2 days, like what? How are you going to live with yourself on that sense?
That's
and is that curiosity still going to be an open loop? And so I was like, no, I just have to finish this out and go all the way through for me.
On my mirror in my bedroom, I have written, well, in my bathroom, I've written the only way out is through. And I really believe it's like the time for emotions and doubt and all of that negotiations with yourself is before the decision is made. It's like, I'm a very emotional man until I make a decision. Once the decision is made, you just move, you just operate, you just execute. It's so simple. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, you signed up, you're in the room. Now you don't feel like it. Great. Well, too late. You already signed up. The Ironman is what did that for me. Endurance athletics, same thing. It's like doing an Ironman sounds awesome. Running a marathon sounds exciting until, in the marathon, you're 23 miles into the marathon. Then it's not interesting anymore. Same thing with the Ironman. I was like, okay, this can be over.
130 miles into the race.
Yeah. 130. It was like mile 8 of the marathon. So I'm like, yeah, probably actually about almost exactly 130 miles into 140.6. And my knee gave out. And so I'm dragging my leg. And I'm like, I have almost 20 miles to go. And I'm like, literally, like, I'm dragging my leg as I'm trying to run. I'm like, this is the worst possible thing. And I was like, but I set criteria to quit before I start, which I think is really important in life, is like, what am I committed to? What metrics do I require for me to continue to do this thing? And if I don't hit these, there's no, like, I have grace in leaving. It's like, okay, like, I know where I want to go. And if those don't happen, that's fine. My Ironman, if I broke a bone or if I passed out, I could quit. Under no other circumstances could I leave the race.
Oh, wow.
And so it's like the door's open any time. But I was like, hey, if I fall and I'm seriously injured, like if something's broken, okay, cool, we'll leave. If I pass out because my body physically can't handle this, cool, we'll leave. If those don't happen, keep going. And I was like, because it's like, I had to keep going. So very healthy.
Yeah, that I like the having some of those frameworks too. And because then from there, the mind gets to say, well, if it's this or that, like what data has come in to change that decision.
Yeah.
I find with entrepreneurship, for me, that's been a huge need.
Oh my God.
And even like before tipping points happen, if we want to go back to like that kind of conversation too, like earlier this summer too, like I racked up significant debt, credit card debt, to just try to get things to scale and to move, and also just to sustain lifestyle.
Yeah.
And my lifestyle was, I trimmed it way down just to be like, I know that this crypto stuff is gold. I know my passion. I know that I'm supported, like energetically, spiritually. I know it's all aligned. And I know that when the crypto market takes off, there's going to be this crazy demand, but I just have to make it through.
Yes.
And I also set different timelines for myself to be like, okay, if this crypto thing doesn't take off, then what? Is it bankruptcy that I have to file? If that's the worst case, then do I believe myself to like build something else out? Yeah, absolutely. And then sure enough, was able to easily turn the switch on that.
Yeah. As the kids say, pop goes the weasel. It's so fun. It's really interesting because it's everybody in entrepreneurship. Like for me, it's, if someone decides that they want to get in shape, or you want to start a business, or you want to become a content creator, it's like, okay, great. Are you committed to, let's say, 3 workouts at minimum per week for, why don't we say 3 years? And if you don't get results, then you can quit. If you're not done with the 3 years, no negotiating. So like you in the business, it's like this summer, you're like, okay, like parachutes not deploying, and we are dropping in elevation rapidly. Um, at what point do you actually call in the helicopter to pick you up? It's like, at what point do you go, okay?
I did. I was like, I was 6K left of credit card line on my credit cards.
Yep.
So I called one of my aunts and uncles and was like, hey, I would really appreciate this just to be able to cover my rent, please. And they're like, yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. We're here to help you out. I was like, bless. And so I was able to pay all those things back. And I was just like, okay, there's different lines. That was my helicopter. Didn't have to be life serviced out, but it also helped for me to travel back to like my parents for like the summer too, to just be like, hey, I kind of need a little bit of extra love. Let's go back to kind of that source. So I don't have to feel like I'm so alone in this process too.
That's amazing. So you're at this point where you have 6K left on the card. You're like, all right, let me call my family members just to get a little bit more runway.
Yeah.
And so at this point, you probably, if I'm assuming, you had like 3 to 6 months of space where you're like, okay, I need to figure this out, because in 3 months I will be out of runway.
Not even 3 to 6.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, we were yep. Much smaller than that.
Yeah.
I was like, let's just try to pay rent one month at a time.
1 month at a time. Come on. It's so funny because a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've met and had conversations with, it's the same thing. It's like, I was 80K in credit card debt and I was swinging for the fences and I was right on the precipice of too late.
Yeah.
And then it kind of pops. It's really fun.
And then it helped that I still had like some of my crypto investments in the market, but those were my non-negotiables where I was like, I will not touch this. I would rather go in debt, because this for me, I know exponential wealth and exponential growth this year. And being able to pay 20-25% on interest is pennies compared to the 5 to 10x over the next year.
Yeah.
So it was a little just like money management and number management to be like, this was my non-negotiable of I will not touch this. I would rather get loans or whatever I could extend into.
Yeah, use other people's money.
Yeah.
APM.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's that probably felt pretty good watching from this summer until right now, this winter, keeping your money in crypto.
Oh yeah.
Definitely the right call.
For sure.
It's like you could pay off debt just with the interest gained on that.
Yeah. Oh, easy.
Oopsies. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Designed.
Yeah, as we do. By design, life by design. That's also something that's really important, is like when you panic. It's like the fear stories come up, or it's like, oh crap, I'm out of runway in the business. Like I need money and I need money now. If you don't take that step backwards of let me think and plot, it's like you just reach for the closest money, and the closest money might not actually be the best money to use.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that actually set me up to fail.
And that was it, like the money space in general. Like another reason I'm so passionate about that in general is there's so much emotional charge around money, and also so many things that like stories that come in that are very unaware and unconscious. So like reading my favorite book around this has been Psychology of Money, just to become very aware of like how is our environment or family or just even definitions that we have around success. How is that mapping our relationship to money? And then also like emotionally uncharging money and just being like, okay, what actually is money? And also the situation that I've gotten myself into is just a situation. Now that I'm here with these money situations, what are my options going forward? And the more that I think, especially when we're like kind of just, it's grabbing for the first source that we can touch. If we can just like take a breath and be like, I have 3 different pathways. I have 4 different pathways. Pro, con, risk, reward. If I say yes to this versus that, like what is it? And is there a better option? An idea that I haven't just popped in yet? And so for me, that's where a huge part of like, I've out-resourced a lot, or I've used my friends, I've used my network in the sense of like, hey, I need help and support around X, Y, and Z. Is there a better idea that I'm not even thinking of right now?
Yeah.
To help me get to the goal that I want.
I really like that. Yeah. It's like, hey, here's the ideas that I have. Here's the solutions. It's like, here's the problem. I needed whatever it is. Here's the things that I'm thinking as solutions and their pros and cons. Is there something I'm missing?
Yes.
Yeah. Where's my blind spot?
Yes.
Which idea do you usually go with? Is it your first one, your second one? Is it someone else's? Do you notice any trend there?
Human design wise, I'm like a sacral responder. So just my gut, going back, like gut wise, I know it's very intuitive. And it's a very strong yes for me. So first or second type of thing. But at the same time, sometimes I need other options to be able to verify that that's the one.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite things about making a decision, is not like what the decision, like it's not always about like what the right decision is. A lot of the times it's knowing what isn't right. It's like a lot of the times it's like, okay, that definitely doesn't work. So then this is now a higher indication of success. It's like,
Yes.
okay, let me go.
Especially as like an investor and like making money decisions. Like at the end of the day, being an investor is just simply making decisions and having the right information in your court. And so I find that whenever I'm too emotional with like the crypto market's dropped in volatility, and I'm like, what information do I need to make a better decision so that some of that anxiety can reduce?
Mm.
And sometimes I need to sit on my hands, not push any buttons, and just go back to my conviction and my belief. And like, I got into this investment because of X, Y, and Z things.
Are those so true?
Yes. Has any new data come into my world?
Mm.
And
Or am I just panicking for no reason?
yes, exactly. And so we need to have that like a little like internal accounting to be like, what has changed here that would actually make me make a different decision.
So important. So important. Do you see the way that your philosophy on decisions, do you see that changing anytime soon?
I'm always open-minded.
But it feels good right now.
It feels really good. And it also, as I'm making exponentially more decisions these days, I'm also noticing kind of hitting decision fatigue. And I've been having a lot of conversations with some of my business mentors around like what I'm doing, like what I take on as tasks, so that art of delegation. But I'm also noticing that I get to that decision fatigue. And I'm particularly working on my relationship around part of my like overgiving is like I'll get myself to a extreme exhaustion. And then I'll feel very, very, very exhausted to make more decisions. And at the same time, I still think that I have more work to do on the to-do list. And at that point, that's like the midnight to like the 11 p.m. to like 2 a.m. type of range. And it's like, why was I up at that time? Why was I trying to push this through?
Yep.
And so I've been trying to work and add in a little bit more decision-making fundamentals of like, it's bedtime, you need to go to sleep, you need rest, you need self-care, you need a walk. Like I need something else that's not just laboring back to these things.
This will no longer be effective work.
Yes.
And it's like, it's different. Like I grew up we worked on a ranch and I worked in construction. I did a lot of manual labor in restaurants. It's like, there's a difference between like, okay, is the job not finished? Meaning like I need to shovel more dirt or dig another fence post versus I need to write more copy or I need to create another landing page or I need to analyze data. And it's like, for me, data analytics and strategic thinking and planning is not something I can do well while I'm exhausted. And so it's like, okay, if it's manual labor, if it's moving one thing to the other thing, that's totally fine at 1 a.m. But if I'm facing decision fatigue, actually, I want to share something with you that was really important to me. So background, I was running an agency with 26 full-time team members. So a lot of people working with. And that's just internal, not including contractors and clients' teams. So
26 intern. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It was exhausting.
Yeah.
And a huge part of this for me that I realized was important is not only knowing when to effectively do different work, but the secondary thing that was really important is we talk about delegation. And I think one of the biggest pitfalls that I made early on in entrepreneurship, and I still make, is delegating tasks, not decisions, which is really key distinction of like, am I delegating this work to be done, this manual labor, or am I hiring someone and delegating to someone I trust, making the decisions on how the work gets done? It's like, do I trust this person to just fix it and not even tell me about it? And I just know that it's good. Like they can tell me, hey, the thing got done, not how they decided to get it done. So that's really nice, is understanding the difference there. Yeah. Delegating decisions versus delegating tasks and just work.
Yeah.
So food for thought.
That's even a relationship that I've been exploring that on is even like with the different levels of clients that I have as well. And so there are certain clients that want me to make decisions for them. And then the masses, and like, this is where I'm like, this is not my favorite spot to play in. And therefore I've just closed off those types of clients because I'd rather teach people of how to make decisions for themselves. And I'm like, here's the information. This is your money. Your job is financial empowerment and to build wealth that's sustainable for yourself. And so if I take this away from you, then it's like landing on a windfall of money. And then what are you going to do with that and with that power? So I've been getting a little clear of like, how much do I want to take away from my clients? And also what price tag does that come with? But then also like, where do I actually love to play? And that's that relationship that I have with them.
That makes me think that, I think in terms of just human expression as humans, I think like the highest actualization that we have is where we empower other people to make their own decisions instead of being the like having to make decisions for like almost what it is like, are you being are you being forced to make decisions for other people, or are you able to give people the choice or give people an ability to decide? And so it's like clients, but it's also team members, right? So it's like if you're working for a boss that's always telling you what to do, you don't have the power of your own decision making. Versus like if you're the boss, are you giving people the ability to decide things, or are you saying, I need you to do these, and these? Uh, yeah, it's interesting. Same thing with clients, right? It's like, you know what, I'm thinking it's like even the same thing with like doctors, right? It's like, let's say you came into a doctor, he diagnoses you, he says, here's what's going on. There's only one option, and this is the only thing we can do, and you have to do it right now, and there's no other alternative. So get on my bed because we're going to start operating right now. Well, thanks for robbing me of my decision around my health and my autonomy as a body, versus, hey, here's the diagnostic. There's some Eastern stuff that doesn't have a lot of research, but there's an alternative there. There's a holistic approach. There's this cutting edge research that we're doing, and there's this biological study. And then there's also this mainstream option that everybody does. Here's the pros and cons of all of them. Let me know what you want to do. And it's like, which doctor do you want to go with? The one that gives you the decision, or the one that forces something upon you?
And that's an individual. Like certain individuals are going to be like, yes, please just make the decision for me.
Yes. Well, because they're probably exhausted because they're making all the decisions.
Or they've been addicted to they're on that loop of just society, life, tell me what to do. What's the next step?
That's very true. Yeah. Huh. I think this is actually funny. It goes full circle back to the start of our conversation about money. And it's like the fiat currency is like the ultimate actualization of people making decisions for you, because the government tells you how much your money's worth and how much there is and how much you have access to. Versus crypto, nobody's telling you how much your money's worth and how much you have access to and what you want to do with it, which is funny. It's like regulation versus unregulated.
This is power.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, how addicted are you to both sides, right? It's like you could be addicted to having all the power and trying to keep it all for yourself. Or you could be addicted to like, I want to feel powerless, like just make the decisions for me, and I'll trust that you're some benevolent thing that's going to have my best interests at heart.
Interesting that you wove addiction to power. In my mind, at least my first taker, I'm not necessarily concerned about power addictions, but I'm more so about how do we feel safe around power. Mostly at least for myself and for a lot of other women who like resonate with my stuff too. It's more of like good-hearted, but also might shy away from like wanting to take more power for themselves, or being like, if I have more money, that does equal more power. What can I trust in myself? And so anyways, there's so many stories around power in general, and also as power shifting in the world too, and kind of purifying, I think.
It is pure. It's just cleaning up both sides of the street, because you mentioned like era of the yin. And so it's interesting that you're talking about like women that like exposure to power and like, okay, like